The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
9 years ago, the Prime Minister promised he could spend uncontrollably and there'd be a rich guy on a hill somewhere who would pay the bill. The middle class wouldn't have to pay. Well, what is the result? According to him, the total net worth of the richest Canadians has doubled since he took office. Meanwhile, 9 in 10 middle-class Canadians are paying more tax. Housing costs have doubled, so 76% of middle-class youth believe they'll never afford a home. 2 million people line up at a food bank because they can't afford to eat on a middle-class salary. Given that he already broke this exact same promise over 9 years, why should we believe him this time?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if it didn't have real-world impacts on Canadians, it would almost be amusing to watch the Conservative leader tie himself in knots to try and justify voting in favour of advantages for the wealthy Canadians when they sell really profitable investments. We're asking them to pay a little bit more so we can invest more in housing for young people to be able to have the same kinds of opportunities previous generations did. We're delivering dental care for over 200,000 seniors in just the last 6 weeks. We're delivering more spaces in child care. We're stepping up for Canadians. They're stepping up for the rich.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Real-world impacts. That's what we have today after 9 years of this Prime Minister promising to tax, borrow, and spend us into fairness. But according to the StatsCan data he put out himself since he became Prime Minister, the net worth of the wealthiest Canadians has doubled. Why? Because the taxes he puts always land on the middle class. 9 in 10 middle-class people are paying higher taxes. The vast majority of Canadians, and 100% of middle class, are paying higher carbon tax, and his last round of small business tax hikes hit plumbers and electricians, not the rich. Why is it that every time he mentions the middle class, they get poor?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our price on pollution delivers more money to 8 out of 10 Canadians right across the country with the Canada Carbon Rebate. And today, Mr. Speaker, there's an opportunity for everyone in this House to stand up and ask the wealthiest Canadians to pay a little more when they sell extremely profitable investments. We are doing that on this side of the House. The Conservatives will be protecting the advantage that is there for the wealthiest Canadians while we invest more in housing, while we invest more in dental care, while we invest more in Canadians who need it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, if you are a small business owner, you have even $1 of investment gain, you pay this higher tax that the Prime Minister is promising because there's no exemption inside the 300,000 small businesses. And it's incredible that during a housing shortage, he wants to tax home builders. During a healthcare shortage, he wants to tax away our doctors. During a food price crisis, he wants to tax our farmers. And while our economy is shrinking more than any other economy in the G7, he wants to tax our small business job creators. Mr. Speaker, isn't this the definition of insanity?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Since we put our budget forward, the Conservatives have been incredibly careful not to say a thing about the capital gains rate that we're raising. They didn't want to talk about it for 2 full months, and today, when they are choosing to vote with the wealthiest Canadians and against young Canadians who need more housing, young Canadians who need a better break, seniors who need dental care, they're all trying to spin it in 9 different ways. The reality is they have an opportunity to vote with middle-class Canadians, and they're choosing to vote against them.
The Honourable Member from Regina Capel.
The Finance Minister is about to impose another job-killing, wage-cutting, price-hiking tax on Canadians, and she wants us to believe the latest fairy tale that somehow we'll all be better off if the Prime Minister just raises taxes again. We've heard this for 9 years. Let's take a look at the result. Canada is on track for the worst decline in living standards in 4 decades. 9 out of 10 middle-class families now pay more in income taxes, and Stats Canada says that Liberal policies since 2015 have cost Canadians $40 $4,200 in lost wages per worker. They've made the middle class worse off with their last 8 budgets. Why should anyone believe that the 9th time is the charm?
The Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, for the past 8 weeks, we have watched the unedifying spectacle of the Conservatives squiggling and squirming, deflecting and evading. But today they have no choice. Today they had to pick a side. And we're seeing now the side that they have chosen. The Conservatives are coming out against fairness. They think a nurse or a plumber should pay tax at a higher rate than a multimillionaire. Canadians are watching. Canadians now see whose side the Conservatives are on.
The honourable member from Regina Capel.
For 9 years, Canadians have suffered from the terrible consequences of Liberal economic policies. And now, what are they doing? For young Canadians struggling to be able to afford to buy their first home, they're raising taxes on home builders. For families barely able to afford groceries and lined up at food banks, they're raising taxes on the farmers who produce the food. And for thousands of Canadians who have gone years without having a family doctor, they're chasing even more doctors away with a new tax on medical professions. How is any of that fair?
The Deputy Prime Minister and the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have been trying so hard to fake it. They have been trying so hard to pretend they actually care about working Canadians. But today, there's a vote coming, and they have had to finally pick a side. Today, every single member of this House is going to have to choose. Are you on the side of a nurse, a plumber, a teacher? Or are you on the side of a multimillionaire? And the Conservatives are very clear. They're against fairness. They're in favor of the wealthy lobbyists who advise them.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
Canadians are finding that the harder that they work, the more they are punished. The incompetent finance minister wants people to believe that her job-killing taxes impacts only the very rich. It's doctors, it's farmers, it's small business owners, it's a restaurant that's been in the community and leases its building, it's tradespeople like plumbers and roofers who reinvest in their businesses and their equipment and eventually want to stop working. She's raising their taxes in the name of fairness because she spent all the money that she already took for them. How is any of that fair?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, one thing that is kind of astonishing is that after having been mute, or you might want to say gagged, for 8 weeks, the Conservatives have finally found some passion around this issue. And isn't it astonishing that when given an actual opportunity to choose to side with a plumber, to choose to side with a nurse, or to side with their multi-millionaire lobbyist pals, the Conservatives are choosing to vote against fairness. Canadians are watching.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
The answer again proves that the minister does not read her own briefing notes. When a small business owner retires and sells their assets, the minister wants to take a bigger piece of that because she couldn't control her own spending. Those are the people that the Liberals call rich. They're people like my own father. If he was alive today, he'd be left high and dry in his retirement years, the years where he needed those earnings the most. He started as a taxi driver in this country and went on to invest in a small business year after year in a personal corp because he didn't have a pension. How is any of that fair?
Here, here, here. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, squiggle and squirm as you might, it is really hard to put lipstick on a pig. And that is exactly what the Conservatives are trying to do today. The Conservatives have found themselves unable when it really counted to side with working people. They have been unable to vote for fairness, to vote for the nurse, to vote for the plumber, and now they're evading responsibility for that choice. But we won't let them. We're in favor of fairness, and they are not.
The honourable member from Calgary, Forest Lawn.
This fast and furious finance minister unveiled her latest job-killing scheme to screw over Canada's middle class to bankroll her incompetency. Newcomers like my family came here for the Canadian dream, had very little, worked hard, saved money, and started a small business. She calls them tax cheats and vilifies their success. This job-killing capital gains tax hike will destroy their life's work. Hey, they can save it all by canceling their Disney Plus. But before this minister runs away from the mic again, does she think her attack on small businesses is actually fair?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, for the past 8 weeks, the Conservatives have been dithering and delaying and deflecting. They were squirming. They were so uncomfortable because they recognized they had to make a really big choice. Were they actually going to be on the side of working people, Canadians who live paycheck to paycheck, or on the side of multimillionaires? Well, today, we know whose side they're on. We are voting for fairness. The Conservatives are voting against it, as we always knew they would.
The honourable member from Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Her and the leader of the NDP can do as many photo ops with their bikes as they want, but these champagne socialists are taking money from the middle class to give to rich liberal insiders, their elitist Bay Street buddies, and the bloated bureaucracy. This job-killing tax hike vilifies success, punishing small businesses and their workers. That's why GDP per person in Canada is collapsing and Canadians are poor. Before she spends another $1 billion next week to service her debt, can she tell us, is this fair?
I ask all members on all sides of the House to please do not express yourselves unless you're recognized by the Speaker. It's for a whole bunch of reasons, but the very least of all, so that we can hear the question and hear the answer. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to read out a quote from a debate in the House of Commons. Quote, "Monstrous increases in capital gains are making the rich vastly richer and creating a kind of aristocratic feudal economy." You know who said that? The member for Carleton. He did, yeah. And today, he is leading his party in voting to make those gains even more monstrous, in voting in favor of that aristocratic feudal economy. Well, we vote for fairness. They vote against it.
Alors,
Order, please.
ask members to the right, please, to keep their comments unless they're recognized by the chair.